So Emily is carrying her scythe. Her goal today, one of her goals today, was to do some scything, so she got all along the driveway here, and a big section over here that she got scythed, so that we can collect that and use it for the rabbits. We obviously still have a lot more to scythe. And when she tells me that she's done and isn't going to scythe anymore for the year, then I'll come through with the brush hog and finish off whatever she doesn't do. But we'll try and get as much as we can. There's all those dinosaur weeds that I was intentionally coming through to specifically cut down. Thankfully they look like they're all dying. I'm not trying to go to seed yet, so I got to them in time. I gotta get these logs cut before they spend too much of their energy trying to go to seed. But my goal for today is to build a new hay barn, hay shed, portable hay storage device thing. I don't know what to really call it, because it's not really a shed, it's not really a barn. But this is the one that we've been using, and we put a makeshift roof on it that has lasted 3 years. So yeah, the problem with it that I have is that in here it is not tractor capable, so I need to build a similar structure that is designed specifically to pick up with the forks on the tractor. Then I might redo the roof in this one. Actually, not might. I will probably, most likely, put an actual roof on this one that has a pitch so that it'll shed the water instead of collecting the water. And then I can, well, before I put the roof on it, I'll flip this over and figure out somehow that I can reinforce the bottom. This was a stand, so the bottom boards here, this was all a stand for our transport hutch that we threw together when we moved here. So it had a support down the middle because there were hutches on the left and hutches on the right for the rabbits. And then it was built specifically tall enough that it would fit over the wheel well in the truck bed, and this bar here was positioned specifically to fit in the little groove in the sides of the truck bed to help lock it into place. And then it became a modification, so we threw down some wire mesh because we needed a spot to keep the hay dry. And you can see one of my original feet here that didn't last. They got knocked off, some of them intentionally, so that it's sitting on concrete blocks. But anyway, so yeah, I got to strengthen the floor so that I can actually pick it up with the tractor, and then build the roof so that it'll be a little bit more permanent. But the goal is to have something like this where we can take wherever we need to. So like, instead of having to worry about bringing all of that hay all the way up here, we could literally just scoop this up with the forks and then move it wherever we need. So I can just take it, and after we turn the hay a couple of days, then we can just set it down there and gather the hay up and throw it directly in, and then I can move it wherever we need. I want to have a couple of them so we can move them into different places. So that is the goal. I'm also working on a second goal today. I'm trying to get as much done on the siding and board and batten and trim as I can, because I've got a bunch of lumber here that I need to use up for such a project. So that's what all of this is trim and batten boards. Lumber for battens. But I need that pallet, and this is all other stuff that was leftover scraps from milling other, for instance, milling the 1x8s and 1x10s and 1x6s and whatever that are down there for siding. This is all the leftover pieces from all the different logs. Some of that was actually milled intending to be trim and battens, so it was 2 inches wide, but I was not paying enough attention to the mill, and I was in a hurry, and it was getting really wavy, so it became temporary flooring while we worked on the spare room, and then it got cut into 2x3 size. But here's where I'm at so far. So I got all of this batten and trim up here done quite a while ago. I need to get a come along or something and pull that board straight before I screw it into place, and then I've got a couple more to just throw up and get done here. But I have all the trim across the top here, so I need to figure out where the window is going to end, and I can cut the hole for the window here, which will pretty much go from this girt to this girt, and somewhere from right there over to about right here. So I'll cut that, and I can trim up or put battens on the ends that I don't have access to, or that I don't need to worry about the window trim. But I got all of this trim and battens done, and same thing, so this is what I was saying. So once I cut the window, I will need to figure out the window framing, and then once I get that framed, then I will have to build the window jamb, and then I can put the windows in the jamb. And so once I get the jamb in place, then I can put trim around this, and then I can finish putting the battens. But that's where I'm at. And then I need to get a long log, 9 feet, and get a little bit milled to get this last little section done. And then do trim and battens on this side. And the final side will be over here. So that's what it looked like before trim and battens. I mean, and it works. It does what we need. Really? Somebody is upset that I'm not sitting at my computer petting her. And here's what it'll look like when it's done. And I'm not the greatest at the trim work, but it'll suffice. It's good practice. It's good learning. And I'm learning that the more effort I can put into keeping all of this stuff square and straight and whatever, the better off I am. But the trim does quite a nice job of hiding various imperfections and flaws. So it is what it is. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's the goal. So I'm gonna clear off that pallet one way or the other. So whether I put all of this first pallet up or whether I just stack it inside the spare room until I'm ready to do it. I got about half of it done so far, so who knows, maybe I'll focus on that middle section on the far side, because the trim is pretty easy to do up here, and I might even cheat and change how I'm doing it. So like right here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. The trim up here, I fought with this corner, trying to get things square and get it up above the batten. And while on the one hand that corner does look a lot better than this corner was a lot easier. So if I took this and did the same thing but put an angle on it so that it looks like it's sitting flat against the roof, then I could literally just put one board that goes all the way across above the top. You can see here's a good example of the challenge that I was facing trying to wrap this piece from this side and over. It's just a hard piece to measure and fit. So anyway, but yeah, if I take a piece of trim and get that all the way up across the top, then that alone is like a good chunk of the battens that can just go up real quick. So that might be what I focus on. Do the trim here across. So I don't know. Anyway, we'll switch over to the GoPro and see where we get. All right. So far I've got 2 cedar boards that I've placed under the forks for the tractor, and I'm going to just kind of build this around the forks for the bottom, basically I guess you could call it the pallet portion, and then we'll put some wire mesh over the pallet portion and then build kind of a cage around that. And I don't really have a particular plan for this. I'm kind of sort of combining the idea of the little hay shed device that we threw together and the experience I've got with the pallets so far to try and figure out kind of a rough plan. And since this is going to be pretty well kept, dry, I mean, the goal is to enclose it and protect it so that it'll keep the hay dry. So obviously the structure would have to stay dry too. I'm just going to build this out of scrap cottonwood pieces because it's not going to have to support a whole lot of strength, like weight-wise, for instance. So the, cottonwood, these little scrap pieces, this is kind of an ideal thing for something like this. And it also will provide a very light structure when it's all said and done. Kind of wish I could remember what Connie came over to talk to me about. It's been long enough that I don't recall. But that's Connie and her dogs. That's our neighbor. So this is one of the cedar boards. I felt like there was a knot in it, and I felt like that was eventually going to be a potential problem, so I just threw a couple scraps on the outside of it just to be on the safe side. And my thought here is that I've got these thicker, basically 3x3s, and I'll kind of use them as posts for it. And then I'm going to build, or actually I take that back. I think I used these for runners. Yeah, I used these as runners slash spacers. But I essentially built a traditional wall, stick-built type wall for it, so that there would be plenty of space to attach some old metal roofing. In fact, you can see the metal here that I was using to cover this particular pallet. I'm just going to cut that up into small sections, and I'll use that. There was an awful lot of, shall we say, mental pausing for mental processing. Just a lot of times to sit and pause and think about how I wanted to connect things and what I wanted them to do. And it actually turned out quite well. At the moment, it's got a roof. It's got a little more than 50% of the walls attached, like the metal on the walls, and the wind isn't pushing the rain into the other sections, so I'm letting it, go while I focus on other things. But the roof doesn't overhang quite as much as I would like, so I'm going to have to figure that out. I originally thought that I would build like a door on the side that we could, when we need to load and unload, we could lift the door up and prop it open, and it would be hinged across the top and just swing up, and then gravity could just let it close and hang in place. But we kind of decided that would be a little awkward and unnecessary. So we're gonna try and do that without. And I've got two sections of roofing panels up on the top which overlap by one section. So there's basically a little less than 6 feet, somewhere around 5.25 feet of roofing, and it just doesn't overhang as much as I would like to guarantee that the rain's not going to get blown in through that through the side opening that I end up building. But as you can see here, I've got the metal. This is 1x1 mesh that was actually used for our chicken run for quite a few years. We tore it apart just actually this I guess it was just this past fall that we did that, because it was a little 8x8 structure that had a 4 foot by 4 foot nesting box, and it had a 4 foot by 4 foot roosting box, and then was the full 8 by 8 covered by metal. The main structure itself is actually next to our current chicken coop to give the chickens like a dirt area that stays mostly free from rain, so they can do dust baths and things. But it had this mesh all the way around it, and when we, shall we say, decommissioned it as a coop, it didn't need the mesh anymore because they can just freely wander around. And so that mesh has just been kind of sitting there waiting for a new project, and turns out a couple sheets of that are just about perfect for this. So they'll be on the floor to allow moisture to, basically drip down for air to flow underneath, help keep things dry. That seemed to work pretty well with the little shed structure that we're currently using for hay. The tractor actually makes a pretty good table once you put a pallet of some form on there. And you can see poor little Charlie's just itching to figure out when I'm going to play with him. It bugs him when I play with sticks. All he sees is that that's what I'm doing, is playing with a stick, and he can't figure out why I'm throwing it. It doesn't matter to him how big it is. In fact, there was a time we had a branch fall out. The wind blew it out of one of our trees, and it was a pretty good sized branch. I mean, it was probably close to 2.5 or 3 inches in diameter, where it actually broke from the tree, and it was probably 12 or 14 feet long, with several different points where the main branch bifurcated. And he was just so excited that there was this fresh new branch laying out in the road, and you could just tell he just wanted us to pick it up and throw it so bad. So I tried throwing it. Yeah, it didn't go very far. It probably went about 20 feet, and that was it. But Charlie chased and ran after that, and I kid you not, he fought to try to drag that back to me. It probably weighed close to as much as he does, but he brought it back, and then he just dropped it next to me and let go and stared at me like, okay, when are you going to throw it again? He got distracted here in the video because Emily came outside, so she usually plays with him more than I do. But that's okay. So like I was mentioning earlier, I'm building the sides here to just basic regular framing construction. And we're in a little bit of a rush to try and get this done because we know we've had several days of dry, which is why Emily went out and got some scything done. But we know we're going to run out of that. And in fact, when we come back out in the next video, we'll actually, I believe, is when we actually gathered the hay. Because I walked outside and it just felt like it was going to rain soon, and so we rushed out there and gathered all the hay, threw it in the structure as soon as it was. I mean, it wasn't completed, but it had a roof, and that was at least better than nothing. So that's where that's where we end up with the hay for a little while. But it started raining about, I don't remember, it was not more than an hour afterwards. It started to drip, and then the next day it really started to pour. So if we hadn't gotten it gathered up when we had, it would have to have just sat out there, and we could have left it and let it dry once once the sun came up again and gave us enough time to let it dry. But this footage is from the 10th, and today's the 17th, and we haven't had enough time for it to dry, so it's a good thing we got it gathered when we did. I've learned the hard way that taking time to square things simplifies everything from that point forward. Trying to deal with structures that are out of square is really quite a pain. And so I'm actually, even though this isn't a like super critical building, I want it to be strong and sturdy, and so we're taking a few minutes here to make sure everything is actually square. And I got everything within about a 16th of an inch, so I think I did pretty good at getting everything square. And that's where the camera died and the footage ended for the night. The battery must not have been fully charged or something, I don't know. But this is where we actually ended up. Might have even just been that it was getting too late. But we've got some supports across the top there to just to hold it in place. I got to build a roof on it, which is the next major challenge. But I got to build some walls on the sides with some kind of a door. Emily ended up deciding she wanted a half door, so the top portion is open, basically a half wall. Sorry, not half door. But that's where we'll call that good for today. So thank you as always for watching. God bless you and yours, and stay safe out there.